Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the Apex Gaming $5,000 Modern Open here at Apex Con in sunny Caldwell, Ohio. It's Sunday. The second of two 5Ks is underway. We're moving into round number 2. I'm Tandy, joined by Ross Merriam. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross.
Ross, why don't you give us a rundown of the matchup we're going to be watching here for round number 2?
So, this round we are starting with Brendan Lane on Dimir Control. We saw Constantine a little bit at the end of last round, playing more of a Murktide style, more low to the ground with Tommyos and more creature heavy. This version is 4 copies of the One Ring, playing some Shield Rids, a couple Murktides, still has the 4 Psychic Frogs, and a bunch of counter spells, but a very cool list. Playing against D'Artagnan Fail on Esper Goryo is one of the most popular decks in the room today. I've mapped about 2/3 of the deck list so far, and there's 9 copies, so maybe up into the double digits in a 100-person event. Once I finish looking at the rest of the field, was very popular yesterday as well, and very successful with 2 copies in the top 8 of our Saturday event. So a lot of players either running it back or switching to it, recognizing the power of the Goryo's Vengeance strategy.
Yeah, I think the Goryo's deck's great. It plays a lot like a control deck and uses the Goryo's as like a burst of card advantage to use pitch elementals and things like that to just dismantle the opponent. Let's see if it works here. I guess. I don't know.
The big dynamic to me here is that I think Brendan Lane is going to have a tough time finding a spot to land the One Ring unless he can protect it with Force of Negation, let's say. But otherwise, it's hard to cast the One Ring and have counter spells up for Goryo's Vengeance. So I think he's going to have to rely on some of the cheap creatures to apply the pressure. Psychic Frog and Murktide Regent, especially. Those are cards that he can land either early in the game before he needs to hold up counter spells, or on turn 4 or 5 with a counter spell backup.
All right. Well, the players have been waiting, so let's head on down and make them wait no longer. Round number 2 underway. All right, on your left, D'Artagnan Fell. On your right, Brendan Lane. That's who we're going to be watching at there in the back. Start with a Preordain on turn number 1 for Brendan Lane. Down to 18 off of Watery Grave. We're going to go 1 top, 1 bottom, and drop. Back to Dart. Marsh Flats, quick fetch, Thoughtseize you. Down to 15.
See a frog, is that a counter spell? Well, whatever it was, it's in the graveyard now.
I think it's counterspell.
Yeah, Fatal Push and 3 lands for Lane. So, have to
And a
imagine.
frog.
Yeah,
The frog's the big deal.
well, with how quick Dart was to take the counter spell, I think he's got an answer to the frog.
Yeah, maybe Prismatic Ending, maybe Solitude.
It's 3 copies of each of those in the list. So,
Maybe just a frog of his own. Just saying, hey, you want to bounce frogs off each other? All right, just doing some bookkeeping. We're going to be back Brendan Lane's way. Turn number 2. Let's see if Psychic Frog is the play. Found Spell Snare. Could be a good one for the next few turns, preventing the card Goryo's Vengeance from being resolved. Back to Dart.
may have wanted to even hold up the snare this turn. Could have played frog on turn 3. Snare back. But snare doesn't protect the frog at all. You can sink more mana into Prismatic Ending to avoid it.
Without looking, Golgari Surveil Land.
Underground Mortuary.
Wow, I didn't know that one. That's impressive. Underground Mortuary, I believe that's the land for Dart. I'm gonna pass the turn back. So Frog just getting in there.
Some lists of the Goryo's deck play Mortuary instead of Hedge Maze.
If Dart didn't have an answer to this Frog, I find it a little concerning that he didn't just snap the Frog off with that Thoughtseize. I think he's just gonna get buried now.
Well, he took the counterspell very quickly. Maybe he's got some way to set up a Goryo's Vengeance here, but you would have expected either Frog or Tainted Indulgence on turn 2 then.
Right. Or, yeah, just some way to deal with the Frog if you... I don't know. We'll see. I just think the Frog will draw into more counterspells. And if you don't have it like a lined up answer, then that thing is very scary.
A lot easier to win through one counterspell than Frog drawing 3 or 4 extra cards.
Dart continuing to get non-blue lands in his Esper deck. We'll see what the sequence is here. Could be Grief time. Grief Ephemerate time?
Yeah, Exile and Goryo's Vengeance for that grief.
Brendan, hesitant to reveal his hand, but says, okay, you got it. We're going to take Fatal Push, and just gonna go to the graveyard. Here's a Thoughtseize.
Thoughtseize will take the Fatal Push after the Goryos took
No,
the...
it will not. It will target self.
Oh,
And then we're
so...
gonna bring back Gristlebrand. That's what he was going for. He had it the whole time. D'Artagnan fell, gets Gristlebrand onto the battlefield.
And that's why we didn't see any of the action on turn 3. His enabler was his own Thoughtseize.
Right. Good sequence from Dart.
On turn 2, I should say.
And with the Grief rolled up, had the Thoughtseize self into Goryo's play. Just well put together from Dart. And now we can draw 7. That puts us back to the life total we were just at. But now with a fresh hand, if we find any more Griefs or Solitudes, we can do some pitch interacting. But we've already played a land for turn, I believe.
Yeah, this is turn 3 for Dart. Could draw 7 more if he wanted to.
It's pretty dangerous. If you don't already have a Solitude for the Frog, just lets it go. I like it. Your turn.
Dart has a fresh 7. Brendan Lane, we know, has Fatal Push, 3 lands in hand. It's going to get an Undercity Sewers here. See an extra card. Mills another land.
All right. Frog, do your worst. The Fatal Push from Lane just completely dead in hand. Frog gonna jam on in. Just one, but we get to draw another card.
Life total's leveled at 10.
If I'm Lane, I might be pitching a bunch of stuff. Here's a 1 ring. Any force negations? No. Ring resolves. Protection. Hey, chat, what do we say when someone plays the 1 ring? Everybody boos.
Okay, 1 ring, a very solid draw. We'll see what Dart can do with his fresh hand.
If I don't see any boos in chat in the next 5 seconds, I'm gonna be mad. There's 1. All right. Lodges, mill 3.
Not a great start to a turn when you have 7 new cards.
Yeah, especially when you miss. But we did put...
Milled a Priest.
Yeah. I don't think that there's an Atraxo or another Gristlebrand in the graveyard yet, though. Could have Tainted Indulgence or something, but does he even have blue mana?
Not any extra. He just played Island for turn. That's his only blue source, and that was tapped for the Archaeologist.
All right. Draws 2 more with the ring.
See a Preordain in Brendan Lane's hand. There's a Murktide Regent. So I assume 3 cards are going to get exiled to this Psychic Frog, so it can jump over the Archaeologist. And that means if Lane is planning to play the Murktide Regent, might want to do that before combat, so that the exiles to the Frog will pump that creature. Splits the Scry on the Preordain, draws a counter spell.
Do we just have lethal? Do we have 9 cards in hand from the ring draws? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we're 1 short.
Hard to go in on that against the potential Solitude, though.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'll know if this game's going to get a whole lot better.
Well, you just found a counterspell off the Preordain, and
That's good.
Dart didn't do anything scary that turn, so his hand can't be that good.
All right, Frog ability resolves. We're going to smash in. How much? I would discard that Fatal Push and all my lands.
Discards a Delta and a Strand, so 2 counters for the Frog.
Oh, we don't have blue mana for that,
Nope.
sir. Take 3. Draw a card. Does Brendan Lane?
That's an island.
Says go. Has counterspell and force negation at the ready.
Yeah, things looking surprisingly good, given the fact that D'Artagnan has drawn 7 cards with a Gristlebrand this game. Sometimes those 7 aren't very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like drawing an opening hand. You had 3 lands in play and you get a new opening hand, but you're not actually preventing what your opponent's doing. If he had drawn Solitude or Grief or something, you know, he would have been able to leverage those extra cards. Unfortunately, just not putting too much together here, but not out of it yet. Needs to find an answer to the Psychic Frog or potentially dying next turn. The 1 ring plus Psychic Frog allows for huge bursts of damage.
Yeah, the frog is lethal next turn for sure. Even if Lane was empty-handed, he would draw a card for turn, draw 3 off the ring. You could discard 4 cards to the frog, and it would be 7 power creature.
Mm-hmm. I think I see a Sink into Stupor as well. I don't know that Counterspell actually is in the hand, but I know that there's a Sink into Stupor and a Force Negation for sure. Dart says that's okay. Or sorry, Dart says Tainted Indulgence. Brendan says that's okay. We're going to draw 2, discard 1. Big
Okay.
baddie in the grave.
It's a Gristlebrand. I see an Ephemerate at the top of the hand. That's not particularly good here. It's a Flooded Strand, it looks like. Though the Flooded Strand is painful. Island and Plains already on the battlefield. So if Dart wants an untapped mana, it's going to cost him 3 life.
Brendan going to go ahead and fetch. Down to 8. Ring's going to put him down to 6.
Surprised that the Archaeologist didn't come in. There's no chance of it ever blocking this frog. And cards in graveyard are not a particularly relevant resource to try to tax.
Yeah, but who thinks about attacking with a Philology Archaeologist?
I always think about attacking Todd.
Yeah. I think more people have attacked with 03 Archaeologists as a bit than they have attacked with 1/4 Archaeologists with intent.
That's probably true.
All right, Lane down to 6 from the One Ring. We're going to draw 3 cards, and
I see another ring. Looks like 2 more rings.
yeah, but we're going to just go in for lethal here. Exile 3 from the graveyard. Give flying, attack, discard 4, hold up 3 counterspells maybe? 2 counterspells?
If his only counterspell is indeed the Force of Negation, then you're still worried about Solitude. Though at this point, you have to imagine D'Artagnan would have Solituded this frog. I think I might have seen an Archmage's Charm.
All right, well, 1 counterspell is enough. Dart falls. Dart fell falls. Brendan Lane takes game number 1. Dimir Control looking pretty good. The One Ring, a nice pickup after getting his hand ripped apart by Thoughtseizes and the Grief.
Yeah, and really it was the Psychic Frog that did a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the damage, and Dart had very good reason for taking the counterspell with the first discard spell as opposed to the frog, but yeah. It was really just the 7 cards off Gristlebrand weren't very good.
All right, as these players reach for their sideboard, I'll reach over across the table and ask Ross, hey, what's your opinion on what should be coming in here for the Goryo's Vengeance matchup against this Dimir Control deck?
So, Dart's sideboard is 2 Blossoming Calm, 2 Celestial Purge, 2 Consign to Memory, 2 Drannith Magistrate, 2 Force of Negation, 2 Nile Spellbomb, 1 Teferi Time Raveler, and 2 Wrath of the Skies. I certainly like the Force of Negations and the Teferi, and I think I also like the Purges. Hitting Shieldred, Psychic Frog, and Orcish Bowmasters, all very good targets, and I think that's enough to make it better than some of your other removal. Doesn't it Murktide Regent? Neither does Prismatic Ending. The one advantage to endings, it can hit the one ring. It's pretty tough to do. You got to find your one Underground Mortuary and get to 4 mana.
Yeah, I'm off it.
Yeah, so I think Celestial Purge is an upgrade on ending, and then the anti-counterspell cards are good. Brendan Lane's sideboard, I see 3 Consign to Memory, 2 Dress Down, 2 Harbinger of the Seas, 1 Mystical Dispute, 1 Nile Spellbomb, 1 Shieldred's Edict, 2 Subtlety, 2 Toxic Deluge, and 1 Unlicensed Hearse. The Graveyard Hate definitely coming in with Spellbomb and Hearse. I also like the Dress Downs. Pretty good card against Goryo's Vengeance. I could also see the Harbingers coming in. This mana base is fairly awkward. We saw it just be awkward without any, help from Brendan Lane for Dart in game 1. So, only 3 basics. One of them's already an island. If you can cut this deck off of either black or white, particularly black, that can be quite powerful. So, Harbinger definitely an option, but the Graveyard Hate and Dress Downs almost assuredly coming in. Toxic Deluge likely coming out.
Yeah,
and Fatal Push
got
to come out.
I think most spot removal sweepers coming out. I like most everything else.
Yeah, you have to be a little wary of Psychic Frog out of the Esper deck, though Dart's list only has 2. We'll see if Brendan Lane either knows that or decides that doesn't need a lot of removal and would rather have other tools for the matchup.
Alrighty, well, as these players are shuffling up here for game number 2, finishing their mulligans and sideboarding, I'd like to take this time to say thank you to the sponsors of this weekend's festivities. First up, thanks to Ghost Energy. Ghost Energy drinks are delicious and keep you energized and hydrated on these long tournament weekends. Thanks to SpiceRack.gg. SpiceRack is brand new tournament software we've been partnering with here at Apex, and we recommend them. We've been very happy with their updates over the last few months, and we look forward to working more with them in the future. Thanks to Wings Etc. Grill and Pub. Wings Etc. is a fun dining establishment to take your friends and family to have a bite to eat, watch some sports on the TV, have a good old night. Ross and I had a good night last night with the boss man, old Kyle Hook. And lastly, thank you so much to Ultimate Guard. Ultimate Guard is the industry leader when it comes to TCG supplies. From the Boulder deck box to the Katana sleeves. Check your local game store for Ultimate Guard products today. All right, Ross, what's Dart's path to victory in this matchup? What is the ideal opener? Double grief? Are we looking for just putting some stuff in the graveyard and just trying to Goryo's vengeance?
Well, you're looking for both of those things. Ideally, it would be Grief Ephemerate on turn 1, take away all the interaction from Brendan Lane's hand, then turn 2, play one of your enablers, whether it's Psychic Frog or Tainted Indulgence, and then turn 3, have Goryo's Vengeance plus a second Ephemerate to blink the big creature and keep it around. So, we saw him have a similar draw to that in game 1. As I noted, the Gristlebrand really just didn't show him the goods, and I think most of the time it will. So, the key then for me, for D'Artagnan, to me, is to not overreact to what happened in game 1. You executed your game plan, you did it well, got a little unlucky. Just keep, trying to do the same thing, and trust that your luck will turn in these post-sideboard games.
All right, players opening up. Looks like Dart's on 6. We didn't ask them to do the dice on the table to notate mulligans for us. They all just started doing it independently, and I kind of love them for it.
Yeah, I think they started doing it on the Pro Tour stream. I think everybody's just sort of... It's one of those things that once you see it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. We should do that. Yeah. Everyone agrees.
All right, we're off to the races here. Land for both players. Dart going to go ahead and fetch end of turn. Likely going to go get one of those Surveil lands.
Not going to get Underground Mortuary, that Flooded Strand.
Yeah. All right, Ross, here's a weird thing I've been thinking about. So, I don't think the card Consider needs to see play in Modern ever again. And I think it's because the Surveil lands are so good. And instead of casting Consider, you could just fetch a Surveil land.
You can do both.
You can do both, technically.
Sometimes you just need some cheap spells for your Murktide Regent, though.
Yeah, but like Preordain's a lot better. I don't know how often you can fit both.
They usually do play both.
Yeah, they do. But all I'm saying is Consider feels a lot worse in a deck that has a bunch of Surveil lands, which is every deck now. Okay, fetching another Surveil land from Brendan Lane.
Yeah,
we're going to go back.
Lane's in Undercity Sewers. I'm not sure what land Fail fetched for.
Shadowy Backstreet maybe? Black-white? I only see the black half of it. Alright, turn 2 for Lane. Do we have the powerful Frog? We do. Shocked Watergrave, but instead of casting anything, we pass the turn, threatening a counterspell or similar. Dart going to go ahead and fetch. It was Undercity Sewers as well for Dart. Alternate art.
So not a lot of action on the opening turns. Both play. Ooh, maybe a little action here from D'Artagnan. I thought it was going to be another Surveil land.
Yeah, probably Tainted Indulgence. That powerful instant allows him to discard on his opponent's instep. And there it is.
Got to be another Undercity Sewers. Is that Surveil land for Dart? Ooh. Mystical Dispute from Brendan Lane going to counter the Tainted Indulgence. That's a singleton in the sideboard.
Main phase. And we have spell there for that one.
Ooh, no third land for Dart.
Well, he thought he was going to get to draw 4 cards.
And there is a frog now for Brendan Lane. It's great sequencing. Doesn't go for the frog on turn 2 because he had multiple counter spells he wanted to use. uses them very well, and now gets to land the frog and rebuild his hand.
I have been so impressed with Psychic Frog in terms of not only how strong it is, but also like how balanced it is. Weirdly enough, I know that seems crazy. Like attacking here and drawing a card, yeah, that's really good. But like, you don't just dump your hand and deal 5 damage. You usually just go attack for 1, attack for 1, attack for 1, and then you find like a 2-turn sequence that kills them by discarding just the right number while maintaining cards in hand. It sounds like a really fun subgame.
It's like Wild Mongrel.
Yo, Misplaced Ginger, thanks for the raid. Raiders, how did the early morning challenge go? I saw them go live at, what, 7 a.m. this morning? Jeez.
Welcome, Raiders. This is round 2 of 7 here on the Sunday Apex Invitational Qualifier, playing a bit of Modern, so you got in early.
Here's a Philagi. We're going to use that to counter. Just preventing anything from hitting the battlefield, and Psychic Frog is going to run away with this game.
Yeah, Brendan's drawing so many cards that at this point he's incentivized to just use his mana every single turn and trade 1-for-1 at every opportunity.
All right, did pick up a copy of the One Ring. Not sure if he's going to cast or not. We're going to say Preordain instead. Let's in a Fatal Push. Bottom Archmage's Charm? No,
he's keeping the charm, yeah.
Okay.
So leaving in some pushes to respect opposing frogs.
And Dart is just a bunch of uncastables. Says GG, Brendan Lane and Psychic Frog take it 2-0.